Hi and welcome. I'm Angela, and this week's Love Oracle is addressing the difference and benefits of online intimacy from in person intimacy in light of what some of us around the world are experiencing with fears of going into lockdown and the reality that some of us will be going into a more home-based existence versus being in our regular lives, perhaps with some of us being in isolation from others, and some of us will be with lots of people at home, hopefully well. So today's video is really looking at what is the difference between the online intimacy, which we are doing more and more in our modern culture. So this global experience of the coronavirus, we haven't had a situation like this before. And one of the differences is that we have the internet and we have texting. We have electronic devices for communicating, for being connected. One of the problems with online dating is that it doesn't seem to be able to give you some of the physical cues that you need if you're going to actually be together with someone. So if you're comparing online intimacy versus in-person intimacy, one of the conflicts we often see is that when you actually meet a person, your expectations that developed before you met the person are in conflict or jarring or trying to make something work physically that doesn't work. So one of the questions I had for Solo Tantra Yoga was if you don't have a physical chemistry with somebody, can intimacy grow? Can a connection grow? And in her experience, has that been something she's been able to witness? So if you've got a story like that, maybe you would like to share, where you didn't have an instant chemical or physical attraction, but intimacy grew. Because for our culture today, we're an instant gratification culture, and we think there's something desperately wrong if there's not chemical attraction there. However, then we seem to go into relationships when there is chemical attraction and they don't work, and we have issues with that as well. And we also are still confounded by chemical attraction. So when you're chemically attracted to someone and you're perhaps attracted to the wrong person, or you're trying to break up with someone but you can't break up because you're still intensely chemically attracted, we tend to think that that's bad. And because we have bad emotional experiences, rejection, a feeling of compulsion that we can't control. Actually, I'm not going to talk about chemical attraction in this video. There is a divine purpose for it. It's actually to make babies and to bring people together to resolve perhaps old relationship issues that you've had. So there's a very strong reason for chemical attraction from the spiritual level. From the physical level, chemical attraction is basically part of what opposites in our hormones and pheromones for the immune system. It creates babies who have a stronger immune system. So there's lots of reasons for chemical attraction, but emotionally we tend to judge it as a negative thing if it goes wrong. If it goes well, we're fine with it. So I wanted to bring some issues to light to prepare us for some possibilities if we are going into isolation, and if you are craving intimacy. You may be not in isolation from the virus, but you might be craving intimacy. And I wanted to shed some light on what are the changes that online internet text messaging, what options they have provided for us if we actually use our spiritual abilities, our spiritual awareness. And what I'm going to talk about today, the sixth sense. So the sixth sense is not being able to see dead people, even though you could perhaps use that. the sixth sense is in our third eye, and it goes beyond the physical body as well. But I'm mainly going to talk about it in practical terms today. What is the sixth sense? Intuition, a form of intuition, because intuition is not only channeled through the sixth sense. Intuition is channeled through the higher chakras as well. But the sixth sense is really often not taught in our society these days. It's perhaps taught in more esoteric practices, alternative lifestyles. And however, the internet has given us an opportunity to really use that now. And if you're hunkering down, using your sixth sense and your intuition is going to help you get through anxiety and learn how to connect, how to be connected, stay connected, and most importantly, to seek support when you need it. But if you can't get it physically, to get it energetically. Because if you're in your house, you might need some physical help too. You might need to ask. But who do you ask? How do you ask? Your intuition can really help you get that language really quickly and make you think about the right person to get the support that you need, the intimacy that you need, which might be actually just physical support. And it can come from strangers. So the online world has given us the opportunity to connect to people in other places that we don't have physically close to us. Tribal cultures used to populate their species with close tribes or within the tribe. So, I come from a Sicilian heritage, so we were very in tribal breeding, and not always good for the immune system, as my family's testament to. But it actually does also encourage, when you have too much in-tribal breeding, what it does is also make that tribe eventually, maybe after many generations, go out of the tribal gene pool to seek new blood. So now we have the internet. You don't need to travel physically. So let's look at from intimacy, what are we using from the five senses that now, if we're looking at online intimacy, what to elevate from your spiritual awareness. So normally your five senses from physical in-person intimacy, a really huge cue that we don't get from online intimacy is smell. So smell traditionally, that's activated from the Kundalini as well, which really gets your memories from early life, your tribal memories, your genetic memories, smells that are connected to your gene pool, your family, your DNA, ancestral history. So smell's very huge, right? And that's missing from online. So the next sense is auditory. And when it comes to intimacy, a huge part of auditory intimacy is vibration. So when you're online or on the phone, auditory vibration is huge. You can still transmit a lot of intimacy through the vibration of your voice. Again, this is connected to child and mother, child and father. The vibration of the father's voice when the child is in utero is huge. So even though you're not physically in the father, the vibration of the father's voice impacts the embryo and the growing child in utero. Not the embryo necessarily, but the growing child in utero. So auditory vibration, and I'll address this later when I get to that sixth sense, it's always based on the feeling. It's not always based on your words. And later I'm going to talk about feeling as the most important thing to use and connect to when we're online. And your vibration is always connected to your intent. Your feeling, your intent is transmitted to the feeling. Your intent to connect will come through the feeling of your voice. If you're angry, we know what anger feels like through the sound of a voice. You don't need to know the words. If you've got a pet, you know this very clearly. Animals don't understand your language of human your human language, but they get your tone, your vibration, and that connects to your intent. So the vibration is very, very important, because remember, that connects us back to in utero experiences even before language. Vibration of a voice is intensely important. And then we have visual stimulation, so sight, the sense of sight. So in person, as we can see from the shows Married at First Sight and Love is Blind, sight is big in our culture. We have a visual culture. We have images of dating apps or Instagram and other social media, which are very visually stimulated. People are taking selfies. There's a narcissistic need to see yourself in our culture that's never really been on the planet before with the human species. I don't know about others. Can't imagine a dolphin doing a selfie. But we have other aspects of the visual cortex stimulated in this culture that haven't been stimulated before. And that's really distorting. So people will sometimes respond to the physical representation of you in a way that can be quite a disconnect from what you are internally, and it can create a lot of trauma for people. I saw on Married at First Sight last night in Australia that one of the participants was very disturbed that her values of love were not acknowledged because the partner was judging her physically by her what he saw as materialistic or superficial values around her appearance. And so she was saying, yeah, but you're not seeing my inside. I am good. So in the end, we all just want to be told that we're good. And it's really obvious in these dating programs. But the visual stimulation is creating a separation. So sometimes you might prefer to text because you don't want to have a video call. You might prefer to do an auditory call, not have the visual stimulation. So the online media are giving us that opportunity to connect through vibration of call, through text and texting. I'm going to get to texting because it can create a disconnect too. But keep in mind that in-person intimacy, that visual stimulation is very important, but ultimately we want the inside to be recognized. And the visual stimulation, as I mentioned through the myth of Narcissus, he's stuck on his image, his own reflection. And every step forward in a relationship from that first visual connection is to go beyond that illusion of the visual to the inside of the person. Every relationship's about that. Every romantic relationship, other family relationships are quite different. So then the sense of touch. And again, this is based on vibration. Remember that in utero, you were surrounded by your mother. So this was an important way to experience touch all over you in a very different way to what it's like when you're out of your mum. So touch is such an important language, a love language. It's where we experience being totally embraced. And through online intimacy, we're not experiencing that. You cannot replace touch through online intimacy. Now, of course, while I'm speaking, there's tons of people in Silicon Valley and other parts of the globe working on touch simulation, robotics, and all sorts of other simulation through touch, because it's such an important experience of being human and experiencing intimacy, which comes from being in utero first, when we were completely embraced by this incredible touch that it's hard to replace when you're out of that situation. So, yeah, robotics is going to be interesting, how that changes intimacy. Keep in mind, through online intimacy, you may not be able to experience that, but you can begin to create the other aspects of intimacy, which are emotional connection, understanding the person, and experiencing the person energetically through the vibration, sound, your intent, your feeling, your heart. So these are why online intimacy has become more important in our culture, because we were getting too out of balance by stimulating the visual cortex and, of course, taking touch into certain directions that were very unhealthy, damaging, and destructive to our culture. So touch, because it is so our first language of intimacy in utero, when it gets distorted through abuse or other forms of imbalance, it becomes so hard to reconnect to that. And our culture's gone too much the other way. So online is stopping that connection. And people are starting to look at intimacy from more of what can I get seen inside of me, not the physical. It's a really important step. Online intimacy is huge. And by online, I mean also virtual through text and messaging apps as well. And then the final sense of taste. So, of course, taste is a very visceral experience that online can't replace, but, certain IT virtual reality developments are happening to try to replicate that. I know it from the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and other sensory software that was developed through science fiction. They've already got the ideas out there. Some of the technology's being developed. But taste is not just what you get through physical intimacy. Taste is also what we do collectively as a species from the beginning of time. We ate together. We ate. Taste was stimulated through eating together and also eating with your caregivers. So the taste is a huge sensory stimulus of intimacy because we eat and we share, and eating's very, it's not just oral satisfaction. It's like a sense of community, belonging, having a place, having value, because when you're eating together, everybody is together and it gives that sense of belonging. It's such an important sense, taste, because it does more than just, say, sexual intimacy. It does so much more to connect us to our tribal, ancestral belonging, need to belong and need to be part of something. So in the cooking, you might be preparing, or you might be gathering, or you might be hunting, or you might be planning to hunt, to bring food for the tribe. So it's very ancient. Taste and smell are very ancient ones to connect us to those tribal needs that we had and we still have. So if you're panic buying, maybe you can look at it differently. Oh, I'm panic buying because I have a tribal need to make sure we've got our ability to share and to have food together. So if you're hoarding, you may like to look at that. Can you just maybe ask a neighbour or a friend? If that's an obstacle, then we need to look at intimacy for you. What can you look at as a need for you to create connections where you don't feel alone and you feel you belong? And that goes back to a lot of our family intimacy versus our romantic ones. So finally, what is that sixth sense? So when you get a gut feeling, like we've heard from the reality shows, that people, when they first see someone, they get a reaction. That's more from your aura as well. It's your impression that you're projecting through your emotional and your mental systems, your bodies. We call it in spiritual work, your mental and emotional bodies, but basically your thoughts and your feelings. You're like a projector 24 hours a day, yes, even when you're sleeping, through your thoughts and your feelings. And so when someone first sees you, yes, they see the visual, but they're getting that impact from your aura straight away. There's also the soul, which I've talked about in other videos. I'm not talking about that today. And that has a desire to use that impact of the emotions and thoughts to give a first impression. And that can also trigger some of the hormones which are happening outside of your mental and emotional bodies. That's the physical body. So you can impact someone immediately. And in love at first sight, we've seen some of that chemistry happen, or some of that negative chemistry, like, oh, I don't really like this person. And it happens immediately, first few seconds, even sooner than that. And that is what the sixth sense then can be called in, because our mental and emotional body are in the second and third chakras, lower chakras, our gut feelings, and your sixth sense is up here. It's not only up here, it's important to integrate that with your heart and also to integrate it with some deeper connections to your higher self, which for some of us takes a lot of practice. For all of us takes a lot of practice, but some of us are born more innately with more abilities to connect more easily, say. But without fostering that connection to your higher self, it doesn't really happen. It takes practice. So I'm going to give you one tool today to start practicing to go beyond the trap of online or text messaging, where we often put assumptions on what people are saying through their texts, or you may hear someone's words and put a lot of assumptions on what their words are saying. One of the problems of online dating is that people send texts and then we spend 3 hours predicting, assuming what that text meant. And what you're missing out on is the opportunity to connect to that sixth sense and not rely on the lower chakras or your gut. Because your gut is good at picking up the signal, or red flags, if you want to call it, the negative things, or picking up something that's not in alignment. Because a red flag, what I don't like about calling things red flags, it says avoid that person like plague. No, maybe there's a red flag because that person needs something. They have an intimacy that they're craving, like the rest of billions of people on earth are craving. We all crave it. We all can't get it sometimes. And some of us are looking. So red flags are not always get rid of the person. Sometimes they're like a stimulus to your own needs, because that person's a mirror, a reflection of some of your needs too, because we all have similar needs. But we also have similar blocks to those needs. And that person could be triggering you to see something that you might have. It's not always a direct mirror. Keep in mind that your spirit is much more intelligent than our mental brain. So your spirit's always going to give you multidimensional reflections of people through many different people. Romantic relationships reflect a lot of our needs. And what I've noticed through text messaging and online dating is that people take these messages and start projecting, just like Narcissus did by looking at his own reflection and starting seeing what he wanted to see rather than seeing beyond that. So the sixth sense is really important. How do we activate it? It is based in the third eye, but simple questions about asking what's really the intent of the person here, not going from your gut reaction straight away, is the tool today. That's the only thing you need to do. If you're going from your gut reactions, if you're projecting on the person's text, that's your emotions. It's that easy. I do it, so I laugh at myself a lot. Because with my partner, I get a text and I go into I call myself grumpy pants. So I have grumpy face and grumpy pants because I'm projecting some old story from somewhere, I don't care where it's from, on my partner. He's just sent a text like, I'm going to the shops. In Australia, we call the store the shops. I'm going to the shops to buy chicken. And immediately, grumpy pants comes on, starts projecting on the text. Okay, so it's very habitual. And it's funny. I mean, I think it's funny because I see myself doing it going, who is that person? He's just said to you he's going to the shop to buy chicken. Who is that personality? Now, if you look at reality shows, that's pretty much the entire program is that personality coming out and projecting. So it's pretty fascinating that we will watch reality shows where people are just 100% projecting. It's also quite negative because you're starting to learn that that's how people relate, and it's not actually. In fact, if someone really cared about you, they'd probably go, oh, okay, he's going to the shops. I hope he's great. I hope everything goes well for him. And I hope I see that chicken and enjoy the chicken with him. That'd be wonderful. So, whatever I was going through was a part of my personality trying to communicate to me there was an aspect of the personality that's frustrated. Why am I frustrated? Okay. So, how do you get into the habit, though, of interrupting the gut response of whinging and projecting about what that person may have texted to you or what you think is their true motivation? Because so many people on these reality shows really know what someone's thinking after they've spent 3 weeks projecting all of their thoughts about it. They really know what they're thinking. The first thing is to just notice that you're projecting. Notice that you're being emotional. And that's very hard when you're emotional. Believe me, I'm an emotional person and I know it's hard. So I've characterized my grumpy pants. I've given her the personality, a persona. I know it, I used to call it Bert and Ernie, like I do Bert and there's a part of me that's Ernie. So I used to give them names. Now I just know it's me being ridiculous and I know that part of my personality because I know it so well. And then the second step is to go and connect to a higher part of yourself. It doesn't matter what you call it. I don't care what it is. It could be a question. You don't need to have any sense of belief in what I'm talking about. It's not about belief. It's about asking, okay, what's really going on here? So the question you might ask yourself, I wrote it down before. What's the feeling behind the words? So if you're looking at a text from someone and you're reacting negatively, what's the feeling behind the words? Their words. Go into the feeling behind the words. Now, the habit is you're probably going to pick up your feeling. So if you are picking up your feeling, you need to ask a second question, which be, is this mine or is it theirs? So if you you've got to pick up the feeling behind their words because the words are just blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter what the person's saying. You being emotional is not connecting to them. So whenever someone's trying to connect to you, you need to feel the feeling. Remember, back in utero, we were all about vibration and feeling. And that was our first intimacy. It was all vibration. We didn't speak any language. We didn't even have words. We didn't have thoughts. We had vibration. So go back, what's the feeling behind the words? And if you're still being negative, or if there's a feeling there that you feel is a bit, prickly, or don't know quite how to verbalize it, just ask, is this mine or is it theirs? And now you may, when I'm offering these questions, you may be in a messy state, so you're not going to get clear answers. So this is what I teach. It's listening differently. The online intimacy that we're looking for is an opportunity if we get beyond pulling people apart, dissecting their language and coming from a really critical aspect of words, which is not what human beings were designed for. Human beings were designed to use a lot of our physical senses to relate, not just words. If we want to go beyond that, we need to activate the heart. We need to listen with the heart. And this is all of what I teach, actually. It's all about, the only thing I really teach is listening with the heart. It's just many ways that I teach it. And the first thing to understand about listening with the heart is it comes from your intent. Your intent from listening from the heart and with the heart is a deeper form of listening. It goes beyond words, it goes to vibration. And the intent is to not cause harm to yourself or anyone and to understand. So the heart is always to understand. You may not like someone. You may have a physical repulsion to the person, but you can still understand them. And we've seen from the reality shows Married at First Sight that some of the couples have gone I actually like you, but I don't want to be with you. But they've gone through so much suffering to get to that point because they were projecting a lot of their expectations and their emotions on the person. And then the person wasn't that person. They didn't see the person. So the other person got hurt because they weren't seen. So listening from the heart comes back to really having the intent to not hurt anyone, yourself or the other person, and to understand. And it's not really sexy. Sometimes we think it's not sexy. But what I've seen over and over again is that when somebody is understood, they feel deeply attracted to you and they become really attractive. It goes beyond the visual and becomes something that we're all seeking, which is deeper and closer connection. So remember that intent. If you practicing intent in the morning to wake up and not hurt anybody and to understand them and just watch your day, that's what you'll start to practice each day. And it can come from just one conversation with someone or from a thought to go out and check on somebody because your intent was just to understand them, not to really do anything magnanimous or to do anything out of the ordinary. But suddenly, if you ask yourself in the morning when you wake up to practice not to hurt anyone, including yourself or anyone else, and simply to understand, connections will start to happen and deeper connections start to happen automatically. So the internet is a fantastic opportunity to explore that. If you go onto the internet, you can seal your aura as well. I teach a lot of that because the internet is a place where there is a lot of emotion, there's a lot of projection, and if you're going to do any connection over the internet, you will want to seal your aura. You can even seal the tools that you're using to connect so they don't pick up energy. I do that because I'm extremely, I bring in a lot of energy. So I seal all of the tools that I use because I have to hold the space on the tools that I use to connect with that intent to be harmless and to also to understand, to seek understanding, not just of others, but of myself. So to understand doesn't mean you're going to become really empathetic. That's one piece of it, only a very small piece. Understanding is actually huge. It's actually how the universe operates in complete understanding of everything. So if you think about understanding, it's so multidimensional, so multi-layered. You will never be bored for the rest of your existence when you go into understanding. It's a wonderful way to explore love, to explore intimacy. So that's a summary of the tool. It's really a simple tool to practice bringing in the sixth sense, to ask what's the feeling behind the words. If you're still feeling a bit tetchy or weird or grumpy or out of sorts, ask, is what you're feeling your stuff or is it the other person's? And then exploring when you start your day, the intent of to be harmless, not hurt anyone, and to understand others, to seek to understand yourself and others. And then connection starts to form, including through your internet and your online messaging and other ways of communicating virtually. So if online intimacy is something that people would like to explore more, please put some more questions on the chat, subscribe, and I will probably see your questions if you subscribe more easily than not. I'm next Monday going to be looking at the new Energy Body channel. I still have to work out how to log on. It's a separate channel to Love and Relationship Coach. And in the new Energy Body channel, I look at the energy body in more depth. And I use some movement, some meditation, and some tricks, energy tricks. They're not tricks, they're actual tools, but they do create magic in your life. And the new energy body is also to help people transition from old ways of using your body that simply don't work as we're moving into a very different world, a new world that has relationships that are very different and challenges that are very different, and they're going to keep being different, and they're going to be more challenges. So the new energy body is a way to keep your body up to speed, basically by shifting your vibration. I will share a little bit about my journey with cancer as well. I literally had my uterus and ovaries taken out because the energy of them was out of date with the new energy that I'm living now. And I'm still catching up at the personality level with how that's going to operate in my life. But it is very interesting when you understand how the body holds energy and how that can be replaced by new energy, including your thoughts, but much more than your thoughts. Spiritual tools and practice are ways to channel your thoughts in a creative way, in positive ways, productive ways, and energy efficient ways. So I'll put a link in this video for the new energy body as well, if you'd like to join in. So my live the last Monday of each month in Australia, Mondays, will be on the new energy body channel. And thank you for joining.